We need to learn to step back from the inner voices, both of them, the good, the bad, the devil, the angel, and know that we are neither. The problem that most people have is they believe that they're more one of them than the other, which is entirely untrue.
Inluminance specializes in developing sensory processing sensitivity, a natural high sensory intelligence present in 30% of the population, co-creating with the power of humanity to consciously evolve towards balance. This session features trained high sensory coaches, facilitators and consultants who coach other high sensory people and partner with organizations globally. To contact them directly or to find out about our programs, please see the details in the description.
Hello and welcome to today's episode. We've got Alex, Rikke and Sarah today, and myself, Elisha May. I'm from the UK. I'm a high sensory coach and creative empath. I support HSPs that are ready to stand in their truth, own their value and their unique gifts, and, you know, probably live a sort of unconventional life within our sort of conventional norms. So today we're going to be talking about why is it important for HSPs to be in their truth. This seems to be a sort of not sort of a new term. It's not even a new concept. It's been around for eons, but because of my culture, especially, this idea of being in your truth is almost kind of a new thing, really, because it's always been a case of you should be this, you should be that, or you must be seen to be doing this, you must be seen to be doing that, you mustn't feel this, you mustn't feel that, you know, your feelings weren't valid and things like that. So being in your truth, you know, it's hopefully going to become more and more sort of popular and mainstream, because I feel really as a humanity it's important, but particularly for HSPs to be in our truth, because when we're in our truth, we're being honest with ourselves, which is so important as HSPs, because we're not naturally born to be false versions of ourselves, because that can just lead to so many sort of negative impacts that, you know, we have been covering. So for us, you know, we're naturally born as humans, but particularly HSPs, you know, we're naturally born to live from our truth, to live from our hearts and live a sort of conscious way of being, especially as children. Like, they're so in their truth, it's just refreshing, isn't it? You know, they'll just come out with the honest answer. They'll ask a question that, you know, depending on our culture might be seen as all rude and impertinent, but actually sometimes these questions are really needed to sort of break up sort of things that aren't working for people or in families or whatever the situation is. So being in your truth for me is being your authentic self. So it's who you know yourself to be, who you know in your heart and your body just feels right. You can't often put words to it. You just have this, if somebody asks you a question or you have these feelings and you're going, do you know what, this is just how I feel. Like, I can't explain it. It's just a knowing, it's just a gut instinct. You know, it's that sort of radical honesty with ourselves that sometimes the situations we're in, yes, it looks good on the outside. It might look good for conventional way of being, but actually, does it really make us feel joy? And does it make us feel alive and have love? Because that is our truth, is to be joyful and enjoy life, rather than conforming to what people expect of ourselves and our cultures. So I'll hand it over. So that's the topic for today. So Alex, would you like to kick off and introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Alexander Hohmann from southwestern Germany, from the Black Forest. I'm a coach, systemic coach in German, French and English for all kinds of people, actually, but I work a lot with HSP and with highly gifted people. I have a systemic approach, so it's about bringing all the parts together into more alignment, more wholeness, so that life isn't just the sum of the things, especially the bad things happening to you, but the product of your design and your personal decisions.
Thank you, Alex. Over to you, Rikke.
Yes, thank you, Rikke Heartmann-Bossn. Live in Denmark, work globally and Denmark. I work as an executive coach and facilitator, and I also have HSP coaching. And I'm also a therapist. So I work a lot with leaders. I work with resourceful people who want to or dare to be the true nature of who they are. So working with authenticity and so forth. I specialize also in narcissists and psychopaths. So not as much working with those, but those who has been with a narcissist or working for one or alike. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Rikke. Over to you, Sarah.
Hello, I'm Sarah Connelly. I'm based out of Brisbane, Australia. I'm an addiction specialist, a high sensory coach and counsellor. I work specifically with high functioning grey area drinkers, both with groups and individuals all around the world, providing tools and support to help people transform not only physically and psychologically, but spiritually and energetically, so that they don't need to numb or escape by using alcohol.
Awesome. Thank you guys for introductions. So I did kick off the topic a bit early. So does somebody want to just jump in after those things I'd said about why is it important for HSPs to be in our truth, and what does that mean for them personally and sort of, you know, collectively as well?
I'll be happy to jump in.
Great.
For me, I've actually been working with authenticity and living in integrity for more than 20 years with leaders. So kind of when you do that, it's all about allowing all that you are. So all the flaws, all the imperfections, how can you utilize that in a good way? And that's very much about allowing. So allowing us to be all that we are. And especially also, if we look at it, if you're not allowing you to be or allowing your feelings to be there, the alternative is resistance. So if you resist and you have either due to fear or mostly to fear, so if you resist something, it will work even harder. So what you resist persists. So it's not until we allow ourselves to be who we are and to own our flaws, imperfections, etc., but also our gifts. As Alex, I also work with a lot of highly gifted people, and sometimes they feel awkward or wrong. And myself, my story is that I've always been the odd one out. So that other people saw, oh, you're special, that they saw it as a positive thing. But I always felt as I'm not belonging. So allowing myself that I am different and understanding how I'm different and what it means and how I can use it, that kind of sets us free. So it's also about allowing that. You said about the false self as well, that the traumas we have been experiencing in our life might be a small thing, might be a huge thing. That kind of, you know, brings us to the false self, kind of surviving that trauma. So when we can own and we dare to work on our traumas to set them free, we don't have to be the false self. We can be the vulnerable person that is behind it, or the rebel, or whatever it is. So allowing that to shine through actually is a great help of being who we are. So our true nature, what is that? But I think we're going to explore more, and then we can come back with tips and tricks. But allowing instead of resistance, that is kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I loved what you said there, Rikke. Does anybody want to jump in immediately?
Yeah, I'd like
Sure.
to.
Oh,
Okay.
you go, Alex.
No, sorry.
No, you go.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think the issue is all the more acute since today we have so many invitations to actually build ourselves a false self, a curated self with all the internet media, with all the platforms. So many people build themselves something that goes so far away from their true nature. We have these false selves that are so so far away from it. I think we never had this extent of cognitive dissonance, of this level, this gap of difference, this gap between what people are and what they think they are, between the self-image and reality. And we have minds that actually live in fictitious digital worlds and bodies that still operate in the real world. And those seem to be very disconnected from each other. And that and the mind is being trained in fictitious worlds that mostly value narcissistic, childish behaviors that are not really useful for society. So I think it's very important that people come back and own their true nature, that they own their focus of attention, and come back into their bodies and into this real world, the only one we actually have, the one that's still there once the power grid goes down.
Amazing. Thank you, Alex. Over to you, Sarah.
Yeah, I love that you talk about attention, scattered attention, which is what we are all really struggling with, I think. And particularly as HSPs, given that we see and take in so much more than the rest of the population, that our ability to focus and channel our attention is crucial in order for us to at first have clarity on what is our true nature, because we are so scattered, as Alex has said. We are the myriad of things that people can focus on. Their attention is being drawn every second to a different thing and a different way of being and a different type of person that we need to try and create or become. So focusing attention first and foremost in order to have access to that true energy, and then courage in order to actually live that true self, or those elements of us that we feel are true. Because with the energy and attention so scattered, it's really hard for people to really know and believe that what they feel to be their true self is actually real. Everybody's questioning themselves because there's so many distractions. So I think as far as, authentic self, truth, we need to at first really channel our attention and focus on really listening to ourselves amidst the noise, and then working on having the courage to really live and breathe those elements of ourselves.
I love what you said, Sarah. I loved everything that everybody said. So I'm gonna come back to what Rikke said. That it is so true, and we've all kind of said this, that we have to allow ourselves everything, whether it's the negatives, the positives, the feelings, because we've completely lost sight of the fact that we're human beings with feelings and emotions, and particularly with HSPs, we have so many feelings and emotions. Because like Sarah just said, we take in so much information as well, but we also sort of within our body, there's a high functioning of constant feelings and emotions and things going on. We're questioning things, we're trying to see into things. So there's all this sort of allowing that needs to happen, whether it is the good, the bad, and definitely the feelings. Because I've sort of been saying about this native human language, and our native human language is feelings, it is intuition, it's those gut instincts, it's that, I just have this knowing that I need this. And coming back to Sarah's point about having that focus and that clarity, and boundaries always comes up for me. It's so important for HSPs to have our boundaries, because I think having boundaries allows us to be in our truth, because it's a case of we can, like Alex said, we can so easily, whether it's social media, work, whatever it is, other people's expectations, it's so easy to go into what other people want or what we think we should be doing for ourselves, and this false version of ourselves. But for me, my journey, I had, Rikke mentioned about traumas, I had horrendous traumas, and then I just shut down, disconnected completely from my energetic self, and was just this false version of myself for years, and it was just this yo-yo life. And Rikke had said about resistance, and I was like, yeah, actually there was so much resistance in those years, this constant pushing and pulling, and I was really trying to force things conventionally, but it was never ever working for me. There was always this kind of like, can't describe it other than like an ache in my body of just like, I know this isn't right for me, but it's what society expects of me. And then doing this work and then finding out, oh, I'm a HSP, and doing all the therapies for years, it's a case of, oh, okay, so I haven't been myself. Let's come back to what works for me. And that's not always easy. Like Sarah said, it really takes courage. And I think perhaps I speak for all of us, is that once I knew I was a HSP, that's where it changed. And it's like, okay, so it's okay that I feel these things. It's okay that I have these challenges. Like Rikke said, there was all this allowing that needed to start happening that I hadn't allowed for years and years and years. So being in our truth does enable us to allow all the ups and downs, and hopefully, bring back that focus to ourselves, but not in a selfish way, is it? It's a self-preservation. It's about self-care. And by being in our truth and looking after ourselves and having that focus means we can be the best versions of ourselves. Because to me, our true nature is our best self. That love, that light, that connection with that energeticness of us, that is our true nature. And, we're then able to be who we're supposed to be and born to be in this world, rather than all these false versions that we sort of end up, collecting. So anybody got anything to say about, let's maybe go on to true nature. Why is it important being in our truth, and how is that relating to our true nature?
I brought a statement to the stage today.
I love it. It's all about love.
Yeah, because we often hear it's about self-love, self-care. And often when I say that to clients, they say, yeah, I took a long shower this morning and I allowed myself extra good food or whatever. Yes, that is self-care and self-love as well. But I rather point to another thing about how to kind of love yourself, because I worked professionally with self-love as part of the things for many, 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 many years. But after a personal breakdown and I started to work with self-love, I'm actually embarrassed to say, but I thought, wow, this is self-love. Because I also thought, oh, it's about what can make me feel good. But about two things. One is kind of the inner talk. How do I talk to myself? So if I constantly have this, comments in my head from different voices, you have to do that, you have to adapt to that, you have to be nice, you have to blah, 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 you have to smile or whatever. That is a constant. That is really, really overwork. That's not loving. So be aware of your inner talk, and how can you kind of change it by noticing it and being more conscious of it. So that's one really, really important thing about the inner talk, because if that change to a positive, supporting voice, or just noticing that's actually not my voice, stating that I have to be perfect all the time, or that my house needs to be nice, or whatever it might be. Maybe that's my mother's voice. So who am I? How do I like to live? So that's one thing. And the other thing, and there's also a book that I can recommend, but it's about integrity. So a lot of people talk about integrity, but they often talk about it like it's loyalty to other people. So I like to point it into integrity with yourself. So stop lying to yourself. So a lot of HSP wants to adapt. So saying, okay, I love always these sandwich example. I ordered chicken and now I got a salmon. So instead of saying, it's okay, I take the salmon. Hell no, it's not okay with the salmon. I'll feel bad. So allow myself to be in integrity. I prefer the chicken, even though I know the other person prefers the chicken. So integrity, choosing your needs, and then secondly, finding out, okay, is that doable in the real world? But if I don't allow myself to feel, what is my system telling me right? System, I mean body, mind, everything, energy. So how can I be more in tune with my body and all that I am, and be in integrity with that? So I sometimes joke about, I don't care about if you lie to others to protect yourself, but stop lying to yourself.
Yeah.
That is integrity. So if that integrity is working for you, then the other integrity, that's peanuts, because you've done that all your life, trying to serve everybody. So how can you really be in that integrity and get to know that, so you align with yourself? So I think the inner talk and the integrity is probably the two biggest thing for me about self-love and self-care, to understand it and to pay attention to it. Again, as both Sarah and Alex said, about how can we focus our attention? Well, we need to pull it inwards, because we are 99% outwards if we don't. Sentence.
Yeah, I love so much of what you said there, and it really is about bringing it back to the body, isn't it? It's really bringing the focus back into your body, because I know these days with all the work that I've done, there is this, I can't explain it other than just sort of, I just take my consciousness into my body, and although I'm seeing and thinking, so to speak, up here, there is this connection with this sort of center of my body, and it is this sort of communication that they have to coexist. You know, they have to all be in harmony with each other, otherwise this just malfunctions, like you say, the system. And it is, you know, our true nature is about loving ourselves, and not in the arrogant sense, not in the selfish sense. It is this, you know, I sort of describe it as almost like it's for me anyway, it's a state of being now. It's sort of this self-love, it's kind of like an energy frequency that I can feel in my body. It is this acceptance and alignment with my energetic self, because you know it's not that common now, but we're saying more and more about, you know, that we're these energetic beings having a human experience. You know, we're not, yes, we go through pain, but you know, we're not really here to suffer, but yes, you know, we go through losses, we go through traumas, but we don't need to stay in those places. And that self-critic, oh my goodness, that was my best friend for years, that self-critic. Didn't do me any good whatsoever. And it is about being present. And I love what you said about the word integrity, and that was a word for years. I was like, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? People are like throwing it around. And again, as HSPs, we can tell when people are in their truth and when they're not. So when people talk about integrity and they're going, yeah, but are you in yours? You know, I just had that feeling of like, yeah, you're giving it this, but are you actually in your integrity? And you said about it being loyalty to other people, and it's almost bringing it back to being integrity is about being loyal to yourself. And I think that really is amazing. So amazing bits there, Rikke. Sarah, Alex, do you want to dive in?
Yeah, sure. I'll speak to the inner critic briefly, because that is the greatest enemy, I think, for the people I work with, and the shame and the guilt and the attachment to that inner voice. And in order for us to really connect with our authentic self, or our truth, or whatever we want to call it, as I said earlier, we really need to, first of all, focus our attention and realize, as Rikke said, that we are neither the positive nor the negative voice. And in fact, we are the consciousness that sees. And to try and explain this to people in the depths of addiction, yeah, good luck with that. We are very attached to our inner voice, all of us. We're very attached because it's so familiar to us. It has motivated us, it has driven us, and it's had a very powerful role in our lives. And letting go of that can be terrifying. People really don't know how to do that. So I believe that in order to really authentically connect to our authentic self, there's a lot of authentics there, we need to learn to step back from the inner voices, both of them, the good, the bad, the devil, the angel, and know that we are neither. The problem that most people have is they believe that they're more one of them than the other, which is entirely untrue. So being able to, at that stage that you get where you have a space between yourself and those inner voices, is when you can truly explore who you really are. Whilst we are caught up in these in the thinking mind, again, the thinking mind is a construct of your life experience. It is not who you are. When we can step back from that, we are able to then really tap into what you're talking about, Elisha, which is the energy, the pure part of all of us. We are all energetic beings, and we are all here having an experience on this planet as humans. And yet we are so caught up in the myopic world of just getting involved in everything. The true self is the same for everybody, I believe. I believe we all have this very intrinsic true nature that everybody can identify with when you get them to that level of communication. But it's very challenging, and it requires letting go, like Rikke was saying, letting go of a lot of attachments to who we think we are. Super exciting to me, this stuff.
Yeah, lovely. Loved so much of what you said, Sarah, and particularly you know, you mentioned the word guilt as well, and that was, you know, my best friend for years. You know, I was living from a place of fear and guilt, that inner critic, thinking I was listening to my inner voice, but I wasn't. And, you know, being in our truth, being in our authentic selves, you know, we lose the fear, we lose that guilt. And I just loved what you said about you've got the inner voice and the critic, and then sort of our real self. And that definitely has been my journey, because, you know, people would say, oh, just listen to your inner voice, and da, da, da. And there would be the inner voice and the critic. And I'm like, oh, this is really confusing. And there was just this constant battle. And then with this work that we do, you know, it was like that stepping back, and it's like, oh, okay, there's the critic voice. Let that one go. I mean, it takes time, doesn't happen overnight. And then that inner voice becomes like a tool. Yes, it is part of us, but it's more of a tool. But there is this, like you say, there is this authentic self. Alex, have you got something that you want to jump in with?
Yeah, there's some big words, you know, like truth, and especially today, there seem to be so many people who hold the truth, but probably truth is not an asset that you can hold. It's more of a process. And I'm not sure, for example, that how you feel, and especially your emotions, point you into the direction of your personal truth, because they are actually often contaminated with your belief systems and your conditionings. How many people feel powerless in certain situations in which they are not powerless at all? Or you will be angry in situations that don't justify anger, because perhaps there is some projection going on, or there is some old pain or some old humiliation or something like that that's coming up and wanting to break out. But I think it's more these states of well, knowing, you know, when you look back, there have been these moments in your life here and there where you did something that was really the right thing to do spontaneously, and you can't really explain where that came from. And it's good to perhaps travel back to these moments and find out where you were, what was operating you at that moment, and where that came from.
I love what you just said there, and particularly that, you know, I mean, we can go on to tips now, you know, things we can suggest to others, is that, like you say, there were, looking back, moments of that knowing and that spontaneity, and I can definitely resonate with that. You know, with doing this work, you know, you really start thinking, oh yeah, that was the real me back then when I did this, or I knew that, or, you know, so that's a really great bit of tip there. What would I do for my tips with being in your truth? I mean, just to stress to people that it's not an overnight fix. It takes consistency, repetition, and every now and then, you know, even now, I'm not always getting it right. And something will really deeply challenge you. Like Alex said, you know, things get triggered or challenged, and things will come up, and you know, you're really sort of being tested every now and then. It's like, whoa, hang on, you know, I'm being tested to really be in my truth, or go back into those bad habits, you know, from conditioning or fear-based, or wherever they've come from. So, you know, the tip would be start to sort of watch yourself, become conscious of yourself and how your body feels in certain situations when you're being asked to do things, or told to do things, or you're being challenged, is to just sort of step back and just, you know, if you have to remove yourself from the situation, then, you know, that's what you need to do. But in that moment, if you're able to just step back almost physically, just come into the body and just kind of click in, if you can, to that conscious knowing of, hang on a minute, this is a situation where I would just react. Okay, how do I want to respond? How does my body feel about this? And it is, you know, a lot of the time it's being radically honest with ourselves, and it's sort of going, well, actually, what's really right for me? And that can be really tough, and it can be very disruptive, because when we start being in our truth and, you know, putting up those boundaries and doing what feels right for us, is it can be disruptive to those closest to us, because they can see a change in behavior, or, you know, we're no longer sort of there all the time for them. So it sometimes is just a moment of like, okay, I need to be radically honest with myself. The situation is going to upset this person if I do this, but actually, you know, like Rikke had said about loyalty and integrity, it's like, I need to be loyal to myself right now. And, you know, it's not always, and I just want to add as well, it's not about HSPs being in our truth and that's it, job done, here we go, we know how to be great humans. It's not really about that. It's a work in progress. You know, we're still being tested, you know, throughout our lives, and it's about being the example for generations to come, current generations, of it's okay to do you. It's okay to feel how you feel, and it's okay to make decisions that are coming from a heart-centered, conscious-based place. Because I know through my experiences, a lot of people don't always like that, but it really does, on a collective, make the world a much better place. So I think I've waffled. So over to you guys for any tips and help that could help other people.
Yeah, I can go. Building on what you're saying and what the others of you are saying, because truth is not something, oh yeah, now I got it, and now I just live there. So really allowing the baby step. But one thing that I help clients with, and people I teach, is in their body to feel the difference about how does it feel when I'm in my inner truth? How does it feel when I listen to my intuition? How do I feel when I'm doing things that other people expect, or I think is expected of me? So when am I adapting? When am I being me? So this is sensations in the body that I think is very important for those who listen to this. If you doubt in any way, do invest in a good therapist or coach who can help you identify these voices and be conscious of, because it's a very silent voice. It's small signals, whereas the inner critics are like this, and this is what we're used to because we're on the go all the time. So this very subtle voice, feeling in your body, it's quite easy to get to know that, but we often need somebody else to guide us, because they can watch us from the outside as well and show us, mirror the differences. So that is one thing I would really recommend people. You know, for me, I have an exercise that takes 20 minutes. And then you really know the difference. So it's not that you have to go 10 years in therapy to get this. But I think it's so important to be curious and conscious to how can I listen to my true inner voice? How can I get to know that? And another tip is we all have good days, bad days, high energy, low energy, and everything in between. So the more, and I would like to draw that as a big heart and kind of days with an arrow going up and arrow going down. So when you wake up in the morning feeling, everything is too much, too heavy, too whatever, too many expectations, then stay with that sensation, allowing it to be. Because if you resist it, pushing yourself, I have to get up, I have to be quick, I have to get this and this done, I can't breathe. But if I allow myself to bring my body into it, to just come into integrity, and maybe it takes an hour, maybe it takes 2, but then you will have your efficiency afterwards. So a big heart, loving feeling to that it's okay and that is normal being an HSP. Your energy is, how do you say, the body keeps a score. You have to go with that flow. So don't push yourself when it's not there. Then allow it to be, and you'll sooner be there than if you resist and keep pushing yourself over the boundaries.
Amazing, thank you, Rikke. Alex or Sarah, do you have any tips?
I think we are in quite a narcissistic age where people are just encouraged to, look at me, to curate these 4 cells. So the way out of that supposes that at some point you see these 4 cells crumble like the house of cards they are. And I think that requires lots of honesty, because much of what you're going to see after that is unpleasant. I think the probably among the most honest people, there are people who went through addiction and came out of the other side of it and went through a 12-step program, which is very much about humility and owning all the dark sides and all that. So I think it's much about honesty, humility, all these old-fashioned virtues that perhaps get a bit, not very developed today, but I think that's the way out.
Yeah, I can agree more. Honesty, is a massive, honesty and truth often go hand in hand. It's truth and trust and honesty, and with ourselves, with others, and I can definitely agree with that. Sarah, have you got anything there?
Yeah, I'll try and give some easy tips. Top 10 tips for finding your truth. Meditation or mindfulness practice is the number one. Taking time to sit back and observe. It's arguably one of the hardest things to do based on how it's promoted in society, but when you actually realize you don't have to stop your thoughts, you just have to be able to see them and know you're not them. At least if you can do that for 30 seconds to a minute a day, if you're starting out, do it. We need, build up that prefrontal cortex over time. You will start to be able to more easily differentiate between the noise, the expectations, the inner critic, the drama from the external world, and how the internal world responds to that. As far as energetics, neuroenergetics, yes, we do have sensations in the body. A lot of people struggle to feel physically, as I'm sure you guys know, especially people with neurodiversity. So telling people, feel, how does it feel? They don't get that. So I think also being conscious that for some people that isn't a doorway into finding out who they truly are. It's actually allowing them to find other ways, whether that be again meditation or mindfulness practices, where their nervous system settles naturally, and then they can perhaps access some deeper knowing. But a lot of people can't connect to physical feelings, especially early on. The other really nice question to ask is, am I coming from a place of desire for attachment or desire for authenticity? A lot of what we do is designed to be attached, to be accepted, to be part of the herd. So is this an attachment thing that I'm doing, or am I being authentic? And a lot of times we'll find that what we're doing is because we want to be liked, we want to please someone, we want to get a good result from other people, external validation. So that's one of the questions we work on a lot with addiction, because a lot of people with addiction are people pleasers. So we look at, is this an attachment or an authentic action? And people generally know that when they're asked that question. So those would be my 3 tips. And radical self-acceptance. Just accept everything about yourself at all times, no matter what.
Couldn't agree more. So thank you so much for today, Alex, Rikke and Sarah, for joining me today in today's conversation. It's just a really yummy topic. And yeah, so many tips and suggestions there for everybody to hopefully have some things to take home with them. But yeah, being in our truth is so important, but it's not easy and it doesn't happen overnight. But it's really worth the journey, isn't it? So it's about sticking with it. And again, like we've all sort of said, it's about this honesty with ourselves. It's about an allowance on every level, like Sarah had just said, just self-acceptance, just allow or everything as much as possible. And it's okay to do what feels right for you in those situations. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you next week. So thanks everybody.